I had always thought my life was fairly predictable, settled into the comfortable rhythms of marriage and work. Every morning, I would wake up to the smell of Esmeralda's freshly brewed coffee wafting through our small suburban kitchen. She'd be there, stretching her limbs, her silky hair cascading down her back as she prepared for another day at the hospital. It was a ritual I cherished, one that made me feel secure in our life together. But beneath that surface, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. Esmeralda had become more distant lately, often coming home late from her shifts and occasionally catching my gaze with a flicker of something unreadable in her eyes. I tried to brush it off as stress from work, but that nagging feeling gnawed at me. It wasn't just her hours at the hospital. It was the way she had started dressing, more provocative than before, as if she were trying to impress someone. One Friday night, I decided to surprise her. I had planned a cozy dinner at home, complete with her favorite lasagna and a bottle of red wine. As I set the table, the aroma of garlic and herbs filled the air, creating a warm atmosphere. I lit a few candles, hoping to rekindle the spark we had once shared. I wanted her to feel special, to remember the days when we would lose ourselves in each other's embrace after a long day. When Esmeralda finally walked through the door, her cheeks flushed and her eyes shining, I felt a rush of excitement. She wore a fitted dress that hugged her curves in all the right places, and my heart raced at the sight of her. "Wow, someone looks stunning tonight," I said, trying to mask my anxiety with a smile. "Thank you, babe," she replied, her voice sultry, almost teasing. There was an electric tension between us that hadn't been there for months. We enjoyed our dinner, the conversation flowing easily, laughter echoing in our cozy dining room. But I could still sense a barrier, a slight distance that seemed to linger. After dinner, I suggested we watch a movie. As we settled onto the couch, I draped my arm around her shoulders, and she leaned into me, but her attention was elsewhere. I caught her glancing at her phone, a habit that had become increasingly frequent. Each time she picked it up, my heart would sink just a little more. The movie played on, but my mind wandered to thoughts I didn't want to entertain. I remembered the way she had reacted when I mentioned her brother Daniel, how her smile faded momentarily. He had moved back into town recently, and I could tell they had been spending time together. "Are you excited to see Daniel again?" I asked, trying to gauge her reaction. "Yeah, I guess," she replied, her tone nonchalant, but I noticed the way her fingers fidgeted with the hem of her dress. "He's just fun to be around, you know?" Fun. The word hung in the air, thick with implications. I tried to shake off the unease creeping into my gut, but the uneasiness quickly morphed into paranoia. As the credits rolled, I decided to make a move. "Want to go upstairs? I could use a little time with you alone," I suggested, my voice low, hoping to reignite some passion. Esmeralda's eyes lit up for a brief moment, a flicker of desire crossing her features before she responded. "Sure, but I just need to check something first." "Okay," I said, attempting to hide my disappointment as she walked away, the slight sway of her hips catching my attention. I took a deep breath, feeling the frustration rise. Moments turned into minutes as I waited, my mind racing with thoughts of betrayal and longing. When she finally returned, she wore a smile that felt a little too practiced, a little too forced. "Let's go," she said, taking my hand, but I felt a flicker of doubt. In the dim light of our bedroom, as we shared soft kisses and gentle caresses, I couldn't shake the feeling that our world was on the brink of collapse. My heart raced not just with desire but with the fear of losing her. The intimacy we shared felt tinged with a growing distance, a silent understanding that something unspeakable lingered just out of reach. And as I lost myself in her warmth, I couldn't help but wonder, what was going on behind that beautiful smile? What secrets was she keeping from me, hidden away like shadows in the night? The atmosphere in our bedroom thickened with unspoken tension, a mix of passion and doubt that coiled around us like a serpent. As I pulled Esmeralda closer, her body pressed against mine felt both familiar and alien. The way her skin glowed in the soft light made my heart race, igniting the fire of desire I thought would consume the uncertainty. I leaned in, brushing my lips against her neck, tasting her sweet perfume, and tried to immerse myself in the moment. "James," she whispered, her voice breathy, stirring something primal within me. I wanted to forget about the worries that plagued my mind, to lose myself in her warmth and passion. I trailed kisses along her collarbone, savoring the taste of her skin, the soft sighs escaping her lips igniting a flame inside me. But just as the heat between us began to intensify, her phone buzzed from the nightstand, breaking the spell. Esmeralda's body stiffened for a moment, and I felt my heart drop. "Just a second," she said, reaching for her phone, and in that moment something shifted. "Is it work?" I asked, my voice tinged with frustration, though I masked it with a smile. "No, it's nothing important," she replied, her eyes flicking down to the screen before she turned it face down, but I had already seen the name, Daniel. My stomach twisted with jealousy and confusion. The very man I had tried to dismiss as nothing more than a passing thought now loomed like a specter between us. "Esmeralda," I said softly, trying to keep my voice steady. "Are you sure everything is okay?" She hesitated, a flicker of vulnerability crossing her face before she smiled, trying to bridge the growing chasm. "Of course. Just let's not think about that right now." I nodded, attempting to shake off the dread that clung to me. We began kissing again, her lips soft and inviting, and as my hands roamed her body, I tried to focus on the electric connection between us. Each caress sent jolts of pleasure through me, reminding me of the love we shared. I brushed my fingers along her thighs, inching up her dress, savoring the warmth of her skin beneath my touch. "James," she murmured, and I could feel her breath quicken. Her eyes fluttered closed, and I took that as an invitation, reveling in the way she responded to my touch. I leaned down, kissing a trail from her collarbone to the swell of her breasts, feeling her heart race beneath my lips. But even as I worked to bring her back into the moment, my mind kept wandering. Would she respond this way with Daniel? The thought was unbearable, yet it fueled my desire. I needed to make her remember why she fell in love with me in the first place. "Let me show you how much I want you," I murmured against her skin, my voice low and filled with urgency. I pushed her gently onto the bed, the sheets cool against her heated skin. I wanted to drown out every doubt, every fear with pleasure. As I explored her body with my hands and lips, I focused on the way she gasped and moaned, the sounds of her pleasure igniting something deep within me. I wanted to be the only one who made her feel this way, to possess her completely in that moment. I felt her hands in my hair, tugging me closer as I kissed my way down her body, savoring every inch of her. "James, please," she pleaded, her voice thick with need. I paused, looking up at her, and in that instant, I saw a flicker of something more in her eyes, a mix of longing and something else, something I couldn't quite grasp. "Just let go," I urged her, needing her to surrender to the moment fully. But even as I spoke, I felt the weight of uncertainty settle back in. The question loomed larger: was I enough to keep her, to ensure that she wouldn't seek fulfillment elsewhere? As I continued to explore her body, trying to erase the creeping doubt, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was an invisible wall between us, one that no amount of passion could break down. Would I ever know the truth about her heart, or was I destined to remain in the dark, haunted by the specter of her betrayal? The night wore on, and as we reached the peak of our passion, I felt a moment of bliss. But in the back of my mind, the thoughts of Daniel lingered, a shadow threatening to eclipse everything I cherished. As the waves of pleasure crashed over us, I felt myself losing the battle against the doubts that clawed at my mind. Esmeralda's body arched beneath mine, her moans echoing in the dim light as I sought to drown out the unsettling thoughts of Daniel. I needed to immerse myself completely in the sensations, to forget everything except her, the way her skin felt against mine, the way she responded to my touch. With each caress, I focused on the intimate moments we shared, desperately trying to remind her, and myself, of the connection we once had. I traced my fingers along her sides, feeling her shiver in response. I could almost convince myself that everything was right, that the distance had vanished as our bodies intertwined. I pulled her closer, deepening our connection, kissing her fiercely, wanting to feel every inch of her. "James," she whispered, her voice thick with desire, as I trailed kisses down her body again, taking my time to savor her warmth. I loved the way she tasted, the way she responded to my every touch, and I wanted to take her higher. I wanted to etch this moment into my memory, to be the only one to ignite this fire within her. I could feel her hands tangled in my hair, urging me to continue, to delve deeper. As I took my time exploring her, I let my mouth linger over her most sensitive spots, relishing in her gasps and the way her body tensed with anticipation. "You're so beautiful," I murmured, looking up at her, hoping to bridge the emotional gap that had formed between us. I wanted to hear her say my name, to reaffirm that I was still the man she craved, the one she wanted. She let out a soft, breathy laugh, a sound that sent a thrill through me. "You know just how to make me feel good," she replied, her eyes sparkling with a mix of lust and something else, a flicker of vulnerability that momentarily softened my heart. Just then, the buzz of her phone interrupted the moment again, vibrating loudly on the nightstand, and the joy of our intimacy faltered. I felt my stomach drop as I watched her hesitate, her gaze darting toward the screen. "Esmeralda," I said, a warning tone creeping into my voice, "you need to turn that off." My heart raced as I sat back, feeling the heat between us cool slightly as the tension returned. "It's just a message," she said, but her fingers were already reaching for it, and I could feel the wall rising between us once more. "Just one moment," I urged, trying to regain her attention. "Let's not let anything come between us right now." She sighed, glancing back at me, her expression torn. "I know, but please," I said, desperation creeping into my voice. "I need you to be present with me. I need to know it's just us." The intensity of my words seemed to cut through the air, and after a moment, she placed the phone down, her expression softening. "You're right," she admitted, a hint of regret in her tone. "I'm sorry. Let's forget everything else," I said, pulling her back into my arms, kneading her warmth against me. "Just you and me, okay?" She nodded, her eyes meeting mine with a renewed intensity. As we fell back into our rhythm, I felt the electric charge between us reignite. I continued to explore her body, this time with a sense of urgency, determined to chase away the shadows that loomed over us. "Tell me what you want," I whispered, my lips grazing her ear, igniting her senses. "I want to hear you say it. I want you," she breathed, her voice thick with desire. "I want you to take me. I want to feel you." The raw honesty in her words stirred something deep within me. I pushed her back against the pillows, capturing her lips in a fevered kiss, pouring all my frustration, desire, and longing into that moment. As I moved within her, the world outside faded away, leaving only the two of us, tangled in sheets and desire, lost in each other. But even as I surrendered to the pleasure, I couldn't fully escape the nagging doubts in my mind. Would this be enough to heal the rift that had formed? Would this act of intimacy reclaim what felt lost? With every thrust, I pushed deeper, both physically and emotionally, desperate to reconnect, to reaffirm our love, to erase the fear that lurked in the corners of my mind. But as the climax built between us, a lingering thought haunted me. What if this wasn't enough? What if, after this moment of ecstasy, I still had to confront the reality of her betrayal? As the waves of pleasure began to crash over us, the world outside our bedroom faded into oblivion. Every thrust deepened our connection, igniting a fire that pulsed between us. I lost myself in Esmeralda, savoring her warmth and the way her body responded to mine. Her moans filled the air, wrapping around me like a soft blanket, and I felt my doubts momentarily quelled by the rhythm of our bodies moving in harmony. "James," she breathed, her voice a seductive whisper, pulling me deeper into the moment. "Don't stop." Her words sent a thrill down my spine, and I pushed harder, losing myself completely in the sensations. I wanted her to feel every bit of my need, every ounce of my desire. My hands roamed her body, exploring the curves that had once captivated me, tracing every inch as if I were memorizing a map of her pleasure. With each kiss, I felt a deeper longing, an urge to claim her, to make her forget everything else. I wanted to erase the doubts that lingered like shadows, the knowledge of her connection with Daniel threatening to overshadow this beautiful moment. I buried my face in her neck, inhaling the sweet scent of her hair, allowing it to wash over me. "You're everything to me," I murmured against her skin, pouring my heart into those words. I need you to know that. Esmeralda responded with a breathless sigh, her fingers digging into my back as she pulled me closer. I reveled in her touch, feeling the heat radiating from her body. I wanted to drown in her, to lose myself so completely that nothing else mattered. Her body writhed beneath me, each movement a testament to our chemistry. I felt her nails scrape my skin lightly, sending a rush of adrenaline through me, pushing me to the brink. The connection between us felt electric, an undeniable bond that seemed to pulse with life. Yet, even in the depths of our passion, I couldn't shake the thought of Daniel lurking in the background, like a dark cloud threatening to rain on our parade. Tell me what you want, Esmeralda, I urged, my voice thick with desire. I want to hear you say it. I want you to make me feel good, she replied, her eyes locking onto mine with a fierceness that ignited something primal within me. I want to forget everything, just us, James. Those words fueled me further. I increased my pace, driving deeper into her, feeling her body quiver beneath mine as the tension built. I could feel her walls tightening around me, drawing me in as she approached the precipice of ecstasy. Come for me, I urged, my voice low and gravelly, my desire for her filling the air. Let go. I'm right here. With those words, I felt her body explode beneath me, her cries of pleasure ringing in my ears as she shattered into 1,000 pieces. The sight of her, lost in bliss, sent me over the edge. I followed her into that abyss, the world falling away as I surrendered to the wave of pleasure that swept over us both. As we collapsed together, our bodies entwined, I felt a fleeting sense of triumph. For that brief moment, I had managed to reclaim her, to hold on to the intimacy that had seemed so precarious. But as the aftershocks of our passion faded, reality crept back in, and the weight of the truth settled heavily on my chest. The night air felt colder, the shadows darker as I lay beside her, my mind racing. I wanted to ask her about Daniel, to confront the elephant in the room, but the vulnerability of the moment held me back. What if I ruined this fragile intimacy we had just rebuilt? Esmeralda turned to me, her eyes glimmering with satisfaction, but I could also see a hint of something else lurking beneath the surface, an uncertainty that mirrored my own. James, she began, her voice soft yet uncertain. I held my breath, waiting for her to continue, my heart pounding in my chest. Did she feel it too? The tension? The unspoken words that hovered between us like smoke? About Daniel, she started, and I felt my heart drop. I knew then that the delicate piece we had found was still hanging by a thread, ready to unravel with the next words that fell from her lips. As she opened her mouth to speak, I braced myself for the truth, ready to face whatever came next. About Daniel, Esmeralda began, her voice trembling slightly as she searched for the right words. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach, every nerve ending alert as I braced myself for whatever was about to spill from her lips. I pulled her closer, wanting to shield her from the turmoil that swirled within me, but the reality of her connection with him loomed over us like a storm cloud. What about him? I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. She took a deep breath, her gaze flickering to the side as if she were searching for an escape route. I don't know how to say this without hurting you, she confessed, her brow furrowing. It's just, Daniel and I have been spending time together, and I don't want you to think it's anything serious, but… The air between us thickened, and I felt my heart plummet. But… I pressed, my voice strained. I've been feeling so lost lately, she admitted, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. He made me feel alive again. It was just a distraction, I swear. But I need you to know it never meant anything more. The truth hit me like a punch to the gut, and I struggled to process her words. I wanted to scream, to lash out, but instead, I felt a different kind of tension building inside me, one laced with betrayal, confusion, and an overwhelming desire to make her feel what we once had. Esmeralda, I said, my voice low and controlled, though my heart raced with a mix of anger and desire. How could you let someone else make you feel alive? You know I can give you that. You're my everything. I know, she said, tears finally spilling over. I never wanted to hurt you. I was just… lonely? I interjected, my voice sharp. I've been right here, waiting for you to come back to me. How could you not see that? In that moment, I felt an unexpected rush of possessiveness. I wanted to reclaim her, to show her the depths of my desire, to remind her of the passion we shared that could drown out every whisper of doubt. Before I could think it through, I leaned in and captured her lips with mine, kissing her fiercely, pouring every ounce of my emotion into that one moment. I could feel her surprise, her body responding instinctively as she melted against me, her warmth wrapping around my heart. As our lips moved together, I deepened the kiss, coaxing her to forget the pain, the confusion. I let my hands roam her body again, finding the familiar curves that drove me wild. I needed her to remember the way we fit together, how our bodies moved in perfect harmony. Forget him, I whispered between kisses, my hands gripping her waist, pulling her closer. Forget everything but us. Her breath quickened, and I could feel her desire reigniting as I trailed kisses down her neck, each one igniting the fire between us anew. I took my time, savoring the taste of her skin, the soft sighs escaping her lips. James, She started again, but I silenced her with another kiss, determined to erase any lingering doubt. I wanted to take her on a journey, one that reminded us both of what we had built together. I pushed her back onto the bed, my body covering hers, the world outside fading away. I wanted her to feel everything I felt, to lose herself in me just as I was losing myself in her. I began to explore her body again, my hands trailing along her thighs, teasingly inching up her dress, feeling her warmth beneath my fingertips. Just us, I murmured, pressing soft kisses along her collarbone. No one else. Esmeralda responded by arching her back, a soft gasp escaping her lips. James, please, she breathed, her eyes fluttering shut. I need you. With those words, I knew we were on the precipice of something beautiful. I lowered myself to her, taking my time to worship her body with my mouth, feeling her pulse quicken beneath my lips. I reveled in her moans, each sound a melody that spurred me on. I could feel the tension building again, the energy between us crackling like electricity. I wanted her to remember the passion that had once defined us, to drown out the whispers of doubt with pleasure. I kissed my way down, tracing a path of fire as I brought her closer and closer to the edge, determined to make her forget everything that had come between us. As she lost herself in pleasure, I could feel the walls we had built starting to crumble. The connection between us was reigniting, and I prayed that this moment would be enough to pull us back from the brink, to remind her that I was the one who truly knew her heart. James, she cried out, her body trembling beneath me, and in that moment, I knew we were both teetering on the edge of something profound, an awakening that could either bring us back together or shatter us into pieces. As the waves of pleasure crashed over us, a tumult of emotions surged through me, anger, fear, love. I wanted to hold on to this moment, to bottle up the passion that had begun to heal the wounds of betrayal. I pressed deeper into her, feeling the tension between us reach a breaking point. Just let go, I urged, my voice thick with desire and determination. I needed her to surrender fully, to forget the shadows that loomed outside our intimate cocoon. Esmeralda's eyes widened, her breath hitching as I moved, driving us both closer to the edge. Her body responded to mine with fervor, a reminder that despite everything, we still shared a connection that felt electric, alive. James, she gasped, her voice trailing off as I lost myself in the rhythm we created together. I pushed her to the brink, urging her to embrace the moment, to revel in the passion we once cherished. The intensity of our bodies moving together built like a storm, each gasp and sigh a note in our symphony of desire. I could feel her tension coiling like a spring, ready to snap at any moment. And then, with a powerful shudder, she let go. Esmeralda cried out my name, her voice filled with ecstasy, and I followed her into that abyss, my own release crashing over me like a tidal wave. It was a moment of pure, unadulterated connection, one that seemed to erase the doubts and fears that had haunted us. As we collapsed together, our bodies tangled and slick with sweat, I felt a profound sense of relief wash over me. For a fleeting moment, it felt as though we had reclaimed something precious, a spark that had flickered but not extinguished. Esmeralda nestled against my chest, her breath calming as the remnants of our passion lingered in the air. I could feel her heart beating steadily against mine, a reassuring rhythm that spoke of intimacy and love. But as the reality of the night settled in, I couldn't ignore the underlying tension that still lingered. "Esmeralda," I whispered, needing to address the elephant in the room, yet hesitant to break the delicate peace we had created. "I know," she said softly, looking up at me with those familiar, warm eyes that held a mixture of guilt and longing. "I shouldn't have let it go this far with Daniel. I was confused, but you've always been the one I truly want." "I need to believe that," I replied, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "But trust is fragile, Esmeralda. It can take a lifetime to build and only a moment to shatter." "I know," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I'll do whatever it takes to rebuild that trust. I want us to move forward together. No more secrets." The sincerity in her voice made my heart ache. I wanted to believe her, to trust that we could navigate this difficult terrain together. But the shadows of doubt were not easily banished. "Let's take it one step at a time," I suggested, needing to safeguard my heart while still allowing for hope. "We can rebuild, but it's going to take time." "I'm willing to fight for us, James," she promised, her eyes shining with determination. "I want to make this work. I don't want to lose you." In that moment, I felt a flicker of hope, a tiny flame that had the potential to grow. Perhaps we could forge a new path, one that would allow us to rediscover each other amidst the rubble of betrayal. As I held her close, I could feel the warmth of her body against mine, the familiar comfort that had drawn me to her in the first place. Maybe love could conquer the pain. Maybe desire could lead us back to each other. With the dawn breaking outside our window, casting a soft light into our room, I held on tightly to Esmeralda, allowing the quiet promise of a new beginning to fill the space between us. In the aftermath of our passion, we lay entwined, ready to face whatever came next together. And as I closed my eyes, I whispered a silent prayer that we would find our way back to each other, stronger than before, unafraid to embrace both the darkness and the light of our imperfect love.